it feels like the World Cup kind of starts this week properly. The first World Cup warm-up is against Italy. There'll be very many nervous players hoping to at least be on the plane, and then after that there'll be ones who are trying to put their hand up for selection.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think it's an Ireland squad, Ger, that's kind of certainly a team, or 23, that nearly picks itself. It's a bit unusual that there's, I suppose most squads are close enough at this stage of the public could pick what type of players will end up going. Is there anyone that kind of could shock us and get on the plane as well? There's 42, I think, players at the moment in the squad, or 43. Something up around that in the 40s anyway, and that'll be whittled down to 33 in a couple of weeks. So it is a great opportunity for guys who are kind of on the fringes, and maybe it's hard looking at the whole squad to think, what players will kind of push and get into the team. To be fair to Andy Farrell, what they've done the last 2 years has been exceptional, and the squad has been very, very settled. If you just look at what happened in the Six Nations, the injuries that happened, particularly, Finlay Bealham coming in, what happened in the centres, there was a bit of disruption there, and Ireland managed to win a Six Nations. So I think preparations have gone really well for the team. But these couple of weeks, I think, starting with Italy, if somebody kind of changes the mindset a little bit of the coaches, it's an opportunity for them.
It was interesting, Quinny, to hear Paul O'Connell talking during the week about the approach to training during this pre-season and how they've maybe managed it a little bit differently, a lot more ball work. I think he said there's some lads in this Irish camp that can maybe overdo it in training in terms of physicality.
I thought he was talking about historically.
Maybe, yes.
I was wondering who he might have been talking about, people training too hard and then being a bit flat at weekends.
Well, I suppose it's that's the intriguing part, that for the listeners is the preparation here, because it's really vital. I think it's been so well documented what happened in 2007, and probably the results in France were so disappointing, given the enthusiasm and the kind of expectation of that squad going to the World Cup. We were certainly flat, and there was something not right. I think we did a lot of rugby sessions in a lot of that summer, and a lot of them were full-on physical contact. So I read Paul's comments yesterday and listened to him talking about he would have been there right in the middle of that, and you have the enthusiasm for the players, and like at the time there was no one in the squad saying we're overtraining here. It was a very competitive kind of situation where players were trying to push each other hard, and maybe it was one of the reasons why we were a bit flat at the World Cup. We did a lot of heavy physical contact. The way the game has gone now with player welfare, no squads are going to be kind of battering each other in this, in the build up to these warm-up games. You're trying to limit the amount of contact you do. You have to get a sufficient amount in to be match ready. You can't just go into an international game and have no contact done. But a lot of that work would have been done maybe with pads. The live stuff in lineouts and scrums, it's just taking a little bit off that and being sensible. But you would hope that there's a lot of experience in that Irish squad, and they've looked really sharp and fit. I think if you look at all the squads, lads, Wales. And Warren Gatlin's probably always done this. They're very much releasing a lot of their kind of physical fitness work that they're doing. And I know, it's not a secret. Gatty just wants his team to be so fit. And their pre-seasons, I was part of pre-seasons under Warren Gatlin with Ireland. And that was a big emphasis on him, just trying to be fitter than anybody else. But for Ireland, I think, they've all spoken about it being a lot of rugby-related stuff. That would be rugby-related fitness, and obviously trying to get their weights and stuff in. in between those sessions and around those sessions. So that's the intrigue really for any team is peaking at the right time, getting the requisite amount of rugby in, but also having that physical fitness and that intensity that Ireland want to play with to be able to do that from their training.
So no Battle of Bayonne this time?
Oh, the Battle of Bayonne. Yeah, I think that gets talked about, isn't it? Every kind of World Cup warm-up cycle for Ireland. It was well documented, wasn't it? We played Scotland and Italy that year in 2007 in the build-up to France, and I think it was a late fixture that Eddie was given the opportunity in the IRFU to go and play, and it seemed like a good idea at the time. It certainly wasn't anyone's fault, but I think that probably the issue was Wayne Barnes was refereeing the game, and it was a crazy job for him to do. But
Wayne Barnes looks like a child, by the way. He looks about 12.
Yeah, he had two local French touch judges who couldn't speak any English. So I think he's been quoted as saying every time there was a ball passed from a ruck, he had to kind of look over his shoulder because there was a scuffle happening. It was crazy. It was it was a really freakish game because right from the start, it was like as if they had decided they were going to absolutely kick the crap out of us and that we should accept it. Obviously, when you're kind of preparing and getting ready to go to World Cup, you don't want to get sent off, you don't want to get cited, you don't want to miss the World Cup. And there was obviously the incident with Brian O'Driscoll in the second half of that game, after lots of scuffles and lots of verbals. And of course, I came on for about 25 minutes of that carnage in the second half, and I was trying to make a bit of an impact. So I was also trying to say, don't do something stupid. Don't be the one that gets caught here or throws a punch out in the open. And it's a regret of mine to this day because the Kiwi second row for Bayonne, Makira Tiwata was his name, I think. There was a bit of a push and shoving match. It kind of all stopped, and just kind of out of the blue, he threw a punch and hit Drico into the nose. And I was standing maybe a couple of feet away, and I progressed forward to it, and I had the right fist clenched. And I kind of regret to this day that I just didn't let fly because he deserved it. And maybe I probably would have missed the World Cup, and it would have been another high-profile kind of suspension or something like that for me. But it was crazy. Bayonne was crazy. I do regret that I didn't throw that punch because he would have deserved to get his head knocked off for what he did. It was totally unjust, to be fair. Drico has his hands down by his side. He's captain of the team. He's trying to calm things down. He's trying to talk sense into some of us. Like, Neil Best was playing as well, and he was... Best, he was fairly fiery as well and ready for action. And it was getting to the point of, right, okay, we're not taking any more of this, and it's just going to be an all-in scenario here. But I think the game got blown up a little bit early. We won 42-6, and but there was a doubt about Drico for that World Cup. So there'll be no Battle of Bayonne. I think Italy on Saturday, it's a totally different scenario. And then England and Samoa. But I suppose the Samoa game, going back to Bayonne, it's probably not going to be on the same pitch. But it kind of does bring back memories of that 2007 game, which was just the weirdest game ever, to be honest.
Maybe missing the World Cup would have been much better for your reputation than.
But you know what? I genuinely think there's times where I've got myself into a bit of bother, and but that was a time where I thought this guy, he really, really, really deserved it. What he did was just, it was a cowardly act. Thankfully, Drico was okay, and there was. But the whole game was just crazy. They had Richard Dortz playing as well, the French international, who was, trying to be a hard man throughout the game. I think he's done that throughout his career. I played against him a couple of times when he was playing with Cass for Munster, and he was tough. He was a good player, but if you stood up to him, he wasn't so brave all the time, you know. But he set the tone with them really, and it was kind of crazy. It wasn't Eddie's fault. It wasn't anyone's fault. And you know what? It kind of brought us together a little bit in a sense that you know, we kind of incited a little bit of anger internally, but unfortunately we didn't just get the performances of that World Cup. In France, it was so disappointing. But the preparation games are important. You never know what's going to happen at a World Cup for any team. And as I said, you know, Ireland want to start well on Saturday and hope that they don't have injuries. Historically, we've seen David Wallace, you know, Jordan Murphy, Felix Jones, Tommy O'Donnell. There's a number of players, unfortunately, will, you know, have picked up serious injuries. So hopefully we have none of them on Saturday. Andy Farrell has a clean bill of health. And I suppose it's just managing that expectation now. But it's exciting for the players. They're in a great place and they've shown a lot of resolve and steel to be able to deal with, you know, being favourites. And you know, everybody looking at them and scrutinising them. So hopefully they can start well on Saturday.
Would you expect surprises, Quinny? Like, I guess the England game would be the game where we'd see close to a full strength 15, you'd imagine, but for Italy, would you expect to see maybe a nice mixture of experience and also players that are close?
Probably. I don't know what Andy's thinking. When you've got, you know, a start of Romania, it gives you a little bit of an opportunity to maybe kind of hold a few players back for a couple of weeks. I think everybody will get game time. I think, but if you start with your full strength team and try and play them for a couple of weeks, that's not going to happen. I think, you know, everybody is probably going to get an opportunity here at some level. I think there's going to be a bit of a mixture scenario here because it's not going to be the strongest team for England and an A team essentially for Italy. I think it's probably going to be mixed up, and that'll give people who are on the fringes a fair crack at the whip. Italy have a game under their belts. Obviously, they were in Murrayfield last Saturday, and they're pretty physical, aggressive. There's a lot of players for both sides last Saturday who weren't starters in the Six Nations. So I think both Scotland and Italy started off with the so-called fringe players, guys who were trying to, you know, get into a World Cup squad and get on their respective teams. So I would probably expect this to be a build-up over a couple of weeks.
I don't think we're going to see the full team out in one game, because what if they got beaten in a warm-up? Be like, no. We'll see the full team once, and that'll be for the first big game, and then after that we won't see anything but the first team, I think.
We nearly got beaten in Ravenhill in 2007 by Italy. That was a game where it was the last game before we went, I think, to France, and Rog scored a try in that game I think we won 23-19 or something like that. And it wasn't a try. He knocked it on, touching it down. I hope we don't see anything like that. Look, I think you never know with these games because you're kind of coming out of the blocks, and obviously players wouldn't have played games in a while. You in an ideal world, you'd want to start progressing over the next couple of weeks to a point where there isn't wholesale changes and you're building up towards the World Cup. Just look at Australia, where their results have been in the last few weeks in the Rugby Championship, and then Eddie Jones made lots of changes. So what is his best team? Who does he go back to now? You want to kind of have your progression building nicely over a period of time, and as I said, hopefully we don't have any injuries from players, because I think that's going to be a key part of the preparation for France, is trying to keep the Ireland players kind of fit and healthy. You never know. There's always going to be an injury or two here or there, but hopefully that's at a minimum.
We'll leave it there for now, Alan. World Cup starts this weekend, essentially. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads. Thanks.